I don't think that crime is necessarily just a Democratic problem in this country. I think it's an American problem in this country. It happens in cities all over, and not just cities run by Democrats. But it is a narrative that the right will try to spin.
Biden's rating on crime?
And most likely will work in their favor.
What's Biden's rating on crime?
Yeah,
38%.
Well, yes. But when did it happen? When did it happen?
Why is it 38%?
I don't know. What was Trump's?
Why is it 38%?
Yeah, but is it real?
He's gone.
Yeah, but is it real?
We'll see.
Is it real? Crime is at an historic low. It is creeping back up. Let's remember
Not
that.
homicides and shootings in major cities.
It is creeping back up, and that is not good. But it's still at an all-time low, and it's not to the point where
Depends
it was
on the
in
category.
the 80s and
shootings
90s.
in New York State and in New York City
Are
specifically
up from
are all
2019
huge.
and
We kill each other. I'm talking about we lay up under each other cars, lay behind each other houses. The car passed by, we wet the whole car, boom, boom, bang, bang, kill everybody in the car. Didn't catch your homeboy, he ran out the car, then run him down, stood over him. Hit him about 20 times in the face. We kill each other. But as soon as a white boy kill one of us, everybody go to hooping and hollering and all that old stupid ass shit. Yeah. Kevin, why you don't, Kevin?
Oh, what
That's bullshit. When you stand for something, you gotta stand for it all the way, not halfway.
Message to all pro-black people. Part 4. White people are not the issue on the planet. It is the system. Every white person can leave the planet right now, and guess what? It's still going to be gang violence. The clubs are still going to be packed out. Alcohol is still going to be the #1 most sold drug, and this is where we got to hold ourselves accountable. It is easy to play the victim role and blame something else. What about the white people in the military that's sacrificing their lives for their black brothers and sisters? What about the white coaches in the community that's giving black children a platform, the same black children that didn't have fathers? What about the white teachers that's giving all they got? I come from Alabama, so can no one tell me about racism? It's time for us to unite, come together. That's all colors. That's the only way. Don't worry about what the media say. It's us versus the oppressor. Learn something, teach something.
301 people have been murdered in the city of Philadelphia in this year of 2021. And what are we? A little over halfway through the year. Does that mean we're headed for 600 possibly? Steve Keeley.
Hello?
Hello, Steve.
Yeah, Mike, I couldn't hear. I had somebody in my ear. Did you say 301?
301, yes.
Yeah, and the way we got there was we talked to two homicide detectives because it's been a busy, awful night. An infant that was listed as a suspicious death previously because they never get the true story from whatever adult is taking care of an infant when an infant is murdered. And the medical examiner ruled that infant's death a homicide. Then we had two young men shot and killed overnight since we started our shift. So we're now here at Temple Hospital because we have another child who became an innocent victim of the gun violence. So a 14-year-old girl shot in the back will survive thanks to the police, thanks to her family, and thanks to the great surgeons here. But we were just up Broad Street, about 7 blocks here at this scene, Broad and Hunting Park, where at 3:30 this morning, as we're getting ready to report yet on another shooting death, we find about this one, a 21-year-old man, right outside of his house, shot once in the head, only one bullet shell, which is rare these days.
YouTube promotes artists or rappers that promote death, destruction, and damnation in our community. On the other hand, YouTube does not support my content, which is the opposite of death, destruction, and damnation in our community. So if we're speaking about white supremacy and we're speaking about the system, then I think we should be clear on what those things are. Because if YouTube supports death, destruction, and damnation in our community and then runs ads on that content, wouldn't that mean that everyone is complicit with the death, destruction, and damnation in our community? Excuse me, not everyone, just the woke companies that claim to be allies. I think it's very important that we don't allow the media to tell us who's racist and who's not racist, or what's racist and what's not racist, or what's racism and what's not racism. I think it's very important that we come up with clear definitions of those things. Otherwise, we will find ourselves actually fighting against those trying to help. I guess the irony of it all is that this message is controversial, but not an artist promoting death, destruction, and damnation in his or her own community, and then being supported by major corporations. Oh, and let me not forget, those artists are supported by major media platforms and also politicians.
Here is Inspector Scott Small on the 14-year-old girl wounded at the scene of a man who was shot with another man at 11:30.
The 14-year-old girl was on her front porch of her house when she was struck by gunfire. Appears that she was struck by stray gunfire. We don't believe anybody would intentionally shoot a 14-year-old girl on her front porch. She ran into her house after being shot. Fortunately, she's in stable condition. It appears that the shooter or shooters were standing on Susquehanna, firing towards these houses, 2 of which were struck by gunfire. We also found 2 parked unattended vehicles that were struck by gunfire.
So soon after this scene and getting the word of another child shot, the commissioner who in the heart put out this statement overnight. Another quiet summer evening shattered by gun violence. People have a right to feel safer in their neighborhoods, and we refuse to stand idly by while yet another child has their life forever changed by a coward with a gun. And then here's something you hear police say almost daily in the city. We ask anyone with information to come forward to assist us in bringing justice to these victims. And I asked the detective who was on the SEPTA shooting yesterday, did any of the passengers ever call you anonymously and let you know what that was about? No. So people are so scared to even call anonymously from a payphone where their phone number won't be chased. That's where the gun violence is. And
projecting a vision of a world in which the problems of blacks are consequences of the actions of whites, either immediately or in times past. White liberals have provided a blanket excuse for shortcomings and even crimes by blacks. The very possibility of any internal cultural sources of the problems of blacks have been banished from consideration by the fashionable phrase, blaming the victim. But no one can be blamed for being born into a culture that evolved in centuries past, even though moving beyond such a culture may do more for future advancement than blaming others or seeking special dispensations.
And speaking of black culture, what do we say about anti-snitching? What do we say about a culture that says, if you know of someone that has committed a heinous crime such as murder, you should not tell the police. You should not bring them to justice. I mean, just imagine innocent children being gunned down, and the culture says that you can't tell the police because you can't snitch. 40% of homicides go unsolved because of this mentality, meaning killers, murderers, and people that would take the life of a child are left on the streets. And it's justified because you can't snitch. And to add to this already egregious dynamic, if you get caught snitching, your life may be taken as well. Now, I know these are hard truths to swallow, but the truth is the only thing that will set us free.
White liberals long denied that there were higher crime rates among blacks by pointing to the imperfections of crime statistics in general, or, more specifically, claiming that blacks are simply arrested more often for things that whites would not be arrested for. But if the imperfections of crime statistics were the real problem, then discussions could be limited to murder statistics, since dead bodies are not ignored, whether they are black or white, and neither are murderers, whatever their race. But murder statistics show the same disproportionate number of crimes by blacks as other statistics do. While murder statistics might provide more accuracy, they would not provide white liberals with a means of evading the obvious.
It's hard for me to take you all serious when our babies are not only being traumatized by the violence, but they're also becoming victims of the violence as well. Our children are dying. Just go look at the homicide rate of the children in our community last year. So our children are dying or being traumatized by either the poverty or the violence. I mean, enough is enough. Someone has to care about these children. So if you all are going to feel disconvicted about voter IDs and police brutality, then surely you can be that convicted about our future.
By definition, the police will have acted badly, no matter what they did or failed to do. Should the police arrive in such overwhelming numbers as to bring the disorder to a quick halt without any need to use force at all, then they will often be said to have overreacted by sending so many cops to deal with unresisting people. One of the reactions of the police to such predictable scapegoating in the media has been to de-police some of the most violent black neighborhoods, looking the other way rather than risk seeing a whole career ruined by media charges of racism. This gives criminals, hoodlums, and rioters a freer hand at the expense of law-abiding blacks, who may be the great majority, even in a high-crime neighborhood. There is evidence that this is in fact what happens after a barrage of adverse media coverage against the police.
Quit the violence. My mom, know your mom. Just quit the violence. Like, we don't want to get into this, and especially when we live close to your block. That's not real good.
And also, I feel like y'all need to stop all this violence talking about each other's dead relatives. Because I know in some part of your heart, you feel messed up. Just how I said I wasn't on no side. Like, when I heard them talking about how Baby got on the floor and he was crawling, screaming, please don't shoot me, it was sad because you laughed at it like it was a joke. Death is not a joke. Death is something you don't want to play with.
Wait for it. Free blast. Get money. Go.